Planning Advisory. Thank you. Planning Advisory Committee for June 16th. And let me pull up. See, my name is Brian O. I work for Permit Sonoma, County of Sonoma, and I'll take a roll call here. City of Rohnert Park. City of Santa Rosa.
Amy Lyle here. Thank you.
Good morning, Amy. City of Cloverdale.
Good morning, Rafael here.
Hey, Rafael. City of Sebastopol.
Carrie here, and John J, Associate Planner, is also here.
Right. Hey, John. And the town of Windsor.
Kim Jordan.
Good morning, Kim. And let's see, City of Healdsburg. City of Petaluma. And City of Cotati.
Morning, everybody. This is Noah and Katati, and JP is also on the call, I believe.
I see him. Hey, JP, Noah, good morning. And let's see, have we missed any other jurisdiction? Okay, let's turn it over to SCTA folks.
Hi, I'm Janet Spillman. I'm the planning director here at SCTA.
Hey everyone, I'm Tanya Narath. I'm the Director of Climate Programs at the RCPA.
This is BC Caps, also with RCPA.
Ross Clendenin, Marketing and Communication Specialist at RCPA SCTA.
Joe Nichols, SCTA RCPA.
Barney, SCTA.
All right, and we have our rep from MTC ABAG. Good morning.
Hello, Ada Chan with MTC ABAG with the Housing and Local Planning Team.
Welcome, Ada. And then Caltrans District, our local District 4.
Hi, everyone. This is Orlando, transportation planner from our multimodal systems planning branch.
Welcome, Orlando. And to round us out here, our collaborative rep from Four Leaf.
Jane Riley, Napa Sonoma Housing Collaborative.
Good morning, Jane. All right, so let's move on to.
Oh, just one quick. This is Nancy Adams from Santa Rosa as well. Thanks.
Hey, Nancy. Good morning.
Hey. Good morning.
All right. Well, happy summer. I'm sure many of us have started summer break this week or recently, and so hope everything's going well with transition, and hope everyone's got something fun planned for this summer. So let's move on to item number 2, administrative approval of meeting notes for April 21st, 2022. And if you look in the packet, it starts on page 3. And Janet, I believe we need to approve, correct? Need action on this one. Okay. Has anyone had a chance to take a look or would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
This is Noah and Katati. I'll second.
All right. Thank you. Looks like item 2B, Brown Act discussion. Janet, is this in reference to July 1 potential? Okay.
Right. So we've been notified by County Council that the Brown Act is due, or the exemptions from the governor are due to expire at the end of this month, with no word or clarification on what happens in July. So we are preparing to go to in-person meetings with our boards, and it will require all of the committees to have a quorum present in person as well. We suspect that this will either change before July 1st or after July 1st, but we just don't know right now. So I'm just, is that your understanding, Brian, as well?
Yeah, that's accurate. We are planning to be in person for planning commissions that start that first week of July. It sounds like, from what we understand, there may be an extension of another month, but I think we need to just start planning. We're 2 weeks out. Fortunately for us, I think that leads, we wouldn't be meeting until mid-July, right? So we have essentially a month to do some planning and preparation, but good to just inform everyone that that's being planned.
I wish I had more information for you, but we don't know yet.
Yeah,
Noah?
and the one thing oh, sorry, go ahead now.
I was just wondering if SCTA is planning to kind of get some infrastructure in place to facilitate hybrid meetings.
We have that infrastructure more or less already. It won't be perfect, but it will be the best that we can do for now. We do.
Great.
Big
So I was just thinking, if some folks are, not able to attend in person, but we can still have a quorum with in-person folks, that might be a nice way to accommodate everyone. And I don't mind planning to be in person if that's where we end up being, just so everybody knows. But
Yeah, so I joined the county during the pandemic, right? So while it was virtual, and so my understanding is, were these meetings hosted at SCTA building? Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, that's good to know. We'll keep the group informed, and just know that we're sort of planning for 2 outcomes here, and so we'll be ready. We won't be caught flat-footed. Thanks, Janet.
Welcome.
All right, moving on to item number 3, RCPA discussion. I'll turn that over to Tanya.
Great. Thank you, Brian, and good morning, everyone. Drew, I'm wondering if I could share my screen. So I'd like to start out with an update on the draft scoping plan from the California Air Resources Board, and then I'll turn it over to BC for an update on the tree protection ordinance.
Okay, you're good now.
Great. Thank you, Drew. All right. So this is a somewhat condensed version of a presentation that I gave to our board on Monday of this week. So I've included in the presentation a summary of the draft comments at a high level that we're planning to submit with our board's feedback included. So first, just a little bit of background. So AB 32 requires a scoping plan to be developed by the California Air Resources Board at least every 5 years. And the first plan was developed in 2008. We're now at the 2022 draft plan, which was just released on May 10th for public review and comment. And there is a public meeting planned on June 23rd for taking comments. And then my understanding is that the goal is to adopt the plan by the end of 2022. So there are a couple of items that are new in this scoping plan update. One is that for the first time, the Air Resources Board is modeling scenarios that look to achieve carbon neutrality by 2035 or 2045. It also includes strategies related to natural and working lands for the first time. And I just pulled this quote from the document that acknowledges the scale of work that needs to be done, the level of transformation that needs to happen this decade to be ready for 2045. And just to note that based on our understanding of the science and what we're trying to accomplish here in Sonoma County, and what I've been reading from other, advocates and groups that are reviewing this plan, it is not nearly transformative enough. And so that will be one of our comments that we want to submit on this plan. So just briefly, the plan considers or evaluates scenarios in 2 areas. The first set of scenarios are looking at the AB 32 GH inventory sources, which are shown here on the left-hand side of the slide, and then also looks at the natural and working lands set of scenarios there. And just to note that you'll see natural and working lands on this slide in 2 places. One as a source of greenhouse gas emissions, which can come from situations with wildfires, disease, certain land management practices that actually release carbon into the atmosphere. And then, of course, they can also be a sink or a place where we can sequester carbon. And so the strategy looks at both the sources and the sinks for natural and working lands. So first we'll look at the sectors and neutrality by 2035 and the second two by 20. That is
Tanya?
proposed in this draft.
Hey, Tanya, sorry to cut you off. Am I the only one
No.
having issues with?
No,
okay.
Tanya, you're cutting in and out.
Yeah, really bad.
Can you hear me now? I wonder if I
Yeah.
should turn my video off. Sorry, my internet is not behaving well. Is this better? Yes.
Yes. So
Okay,
far.
cool. All right.
Yes, Tanya.
So these are the 4 scenarios, and the 2 scenarios that are looking to carbon neutrality by 2035. The main difference is that the first scenario looks at a near complete phase out of all combustion, all burning of fossil fuels, with limited reliance on the carbon dioxide removal strategies. And then alternative 2 kind of scales that back and looks to a more aggressive deployment of other technologies and energy options, as well as additional carbon dioxide removal options. The proposed scenario is trying to kind of achieve a mix of scaling back fossil fuel combustion, but not nearly as aggressively as alternative 1, and also aligning with existing statutes and executive orders and deploying a suite of carbon dioxide removal alternatives. And then the last scenario is not quite as ambitious as alternative 3 and relies, so it doesn't reduce emissions quite as much and relies more on carbon dioxide removal. So those are kind of the 2 levers that are being evaluated here. So in terms of how these different alternatives compare with the proposed scenario, this chart attempts to summarize in the different categories of metrics that CARB is evaluating them against. So relative to those scenarios, the proposed scenario has the lowest cost and economic impact in 2045. And that's really because it's not phasing out the fossil fuel combustion and implementing the other alternatives as aggressively. So one example of that would be in the first alternative, to phase out fossil fuels or eliminate them by 2035 requires that we actually set an end date for appliances in homes, for example. So rather than replacing them at end of life, there has to be a date certain by when you would be required to replace your water heater, for example. In addition, the proposed scenario delivers fewer health benefits, so it doesn't do as much to combat wildfires, for example, as some of the other scenarios. And then it doesn't reduce the greenhouse gas emissions or fossil fuel demand as much as those obviously that aim for carbon neutrality by 2035. So then just briefly on the different strategies that CARB evaluated for carbon dioxide removal and sequestration. And this is, I think, where there's quite a bit of comment and some controversy in terms of how much each of these strategies is being relied on in the draft scoping plan. So there's carbon capture and storage, which really doesn't apply here in Sonoma County because this is a technology that's used, for example, at a petroleum refining facility where the emissions that are generated by that facility are captured and then stored in some kind of process. So then the other area is carbon dioxide removal. So basically pulling carbon out of the air. And there's 2 ways of doing that. Basically, there's the mechanical means and the nature-based. And for Sonoma County, with our Sonoma Climate Mobilization Strategy, we are really focused on nature-based. We did not consider or evaluate any of these other methods of sequestration or removing carbon from the atmosphere. So in terms of mechanical, there's 2 main ways of doing that. One is direct air capture with sequestration. So there's technologies that can pull carbon out of the atmosphere using a chemical process or some type of filter, and then storing that carbon in limestone formations, for example. And then the second area is bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. And so this would be, for example, taking biomass and burning that for energy and then capturing any carbon that is emitted through that process. So those are the different alternatives. And one thing I should note here is that based on CARB's modeling, they did find that in the natural and working land space, the emissions are actually forecasted to be greater than the sequestration capacity, even if we implement the strategies that are being recommended here, but there won't be as much of a net emission of carbon dioxide with the scoping plan as there would be without the actions that are being proposed. So then these are the 4 scenarios that are being evaluated or were evaluated in the natural and working land space. And again, alternative 3 is what CARB is prioritizing, which is recommending, which really tries to prioritize the restoration and enhancement of ecosystem functions to improve resilience and stabilizing carbon stocks. Whereas alternative 4 is the scenario that has the best health outcomes because it does the most to reduce wildfires. So it takes the most significant or dramatic steps to reduce wildfires in forests and other lands. So then in terms of how the different strategies in the proposed scenario compare or align with the mobilization strategy, there is quite a bit of alignment in terms of what we are trying to accomplish here in Sonoma County. This VMT goal is very ambitious. And I know we've got Chris Barney on the line here, so if there are questions about how this compares to our VMT goals here in Sonoma County, we can look to Chris for some help there. But just to say that this is an ambitious goal for us to achieve or for the state to achieve. The EV Access for All partnership would be very well supported by this goal around light duty vehicle sales, 100% of retail electricity sales. So this is really consistent with existing regulations or goals. And then under the All Electric Buildings campaign, you can see that for both new construction and existing residential and commercial buildings, there are dates by when will be a requirement in new construction, for example, for all electric appliances, and then in existing buildings, goals around the sale of electric appliances. It's 80% by 2030 for residential and 100% by 2035, but the appliances are replaced at end of life versus the first alternative where there was actually a date by when all appliances would need to be replaced, whether or not they were at end of life or not. And then lastly, the zero waste by 2030 would be supported. And this ties with existing legislation as well. This diversion of 75% of organic waste from landfills by 2025. And then on the natural and working land side, the one thing I wanted to point out here is that the strategy does propose to increase investments in urban forestry, 20% above current levels, and also address the concerns around tree watering, and then look to establishing defensible space from a fire concern scenario. So then lastly, in one of the appendixes, CARB notes what local jurisdictions can do to support the plan and to support achieving the goals. And I just wanted to include these here because we are, I think, doing most, if not all of these things, or at least considering these different strategies that CARB is recommending. And I think our feedback to CARB on this area would be that obviously we need the resources and the support to be able to implement. And some of these are easier to do than others. So, I know the parking pricing strategies are challenging for local jurisdictions, parking and pricing. And so those are areas that we would need additional support, I think, if we were to really move forward aggressively on those. So that in terms of the kind of summary of the comments that we'll propose to submit or plan to submit along with the board recommendation. So definitely want to acknowledge the amount of modeling and analysis that has gone into this plan. Very pleased to see the inclusion of sequestration on natural and working lands and the alignment of many of the recommendations with what we are wanting to do here in Sonoma County. But the 2 areas of feedback, kind of key areas that came from our board, number one, that we do not want to see, our board does not want to see any increase in infrastructure that would facilitate removal of forest biomass. So that gets to that one carbon dioxide removal strategy, around biomass. And so concerns around the amount of reliance in the plan on that strategy. And then also, and probably obviously, that we want CARB to propose an alternative that achieves carbon neutrality by 2030, so that it is in alignment with what our goals here are in Sonoma County. So that concludes my presentation, and I will turn it back over to our chair for any questions or feedback.
Thank you, Tanya. I'll turn it over to the group for questions and feedback.
This is Jeff. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
And anyway, I was wondering, is urban forestry kind of still part of the mix in terms of carbon sequestration? I didn't see it highlighted in your list.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes, it would be.
okay.
Tanya
And then,
sorry.
then I was just going to finish. I think one of the things with that we're discovering in Rohnert Park is just it's not just protecting trees, but it's also kind of what trees are planted. We have a tendency with developers and even our public works department to plant kind of little stubby trees everywhere, a lot of crepe myrtles. So just assistance with the types of trees that we're protecting, and then also kind of getting to a certain scale and size of urban canopy would be helpful.
Yes, yes, great feedback. And I think we're not far enough along in our work on the tree protection ordinance yet, but I think that'll be something that BC looks at as part of the work he's doing. So definitely. Carrie, did you have a question?
I was just going to ask, is that part of the carbon sink and forestry components? That
Yes.
From your, okay, cool.
Yes.
And yeah, Jeff, in the meantime, you can, if you want to talk to me offline, we have I've worked with a couple of pretty strong tree ordinances that, talk about the size the size or number of replacements being related to the size and quality of the trees being removed. So there is like we require 2 trees to be replanted for every tree that's removed. I do agree a lot of those end up being more the crepe myrtles, especially along streets because of power lines and whatnot. But there are some strategies if you want to discuss.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Carrie. I'll give you a call.
And Carrie, to your question in the chat, yes, I will definitely get a copy of this PowerPoint to Drew and can distribute that.
Thanks, Tanya. And so just so I'm clear, I'm looking at the staff report on this. Are we looking for specific direction from the PAC at this point, or is it more informational?
It's more informational since we already took it to our board. Certainly, if you have any major concerns with what we're proposing, that would be helpful to hear in terms of comments or any additional feedback. But we are planning to be consistent with what our board has asked us to submit. So.
Great. Thanks, Tanya. Okay. Why don't we, I think there was a second part to this, right?
And actually,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Steve has his hand up.
Anyways, fine.
Sure. Hey, Steve.
Yes, good morning. The Transportation Land Use Coalition has been looking at the problem of reducing vehicle miles traveled for quite some time. And it's a huge task. We're looking at several percentage points per year to reduce in order to get to carbon neutrality by 2030. Last March, we estimated it at around 5% per year. That's going to have an impact. Charging for parking is pretty foreign to most of the cities in this county. But I think we're going to have to start thinking in that term. And what we build and where we build it is, so it really falls in the middle of this group to reach that goal. We'd be happy to talk with any of you about various approaches as we get into this more deeply. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Steve. Noah.
Just following up on Steve's point, because I think it's a good one. One interesting concept may be to try to formalize some type of work from home recommendation to allow, portions of the workforce to maybe work from home 1 day a week or something. And it could start at the government municipal level or just be a rollout from SCTA, RCPA as a recommendation for all business groups. I know Caltrans has embraced that throughout their entire organization as a goal of helping to reduce GHGs. And so it's, you know, for a large organization like Caltrans to do it, I think some of our smaller, more nimble folks could probably do something thoughtfully like that. And I think addressing Steve's point too, it cuts out some of the more punitive kind of stick methodologies with some carrots.
On that point, I did talk with the newly elected district attorney, and their plan is to go to a 3-day work week. Monday and Friday, people work from home to the extent they can.
This is David. From what it's worth, a couple of my contacts at HCD all work from home.
We are definitely in new territory. But yeah, that's an important reminder of just how, you know, sort of individual and organizational decisions, right, can sort of add up to meet these goals. All right, why don't we turn to 3B, tree protection ordinances. I'll turn that back over to Tanya.
And I'll turn it over to BC.
Great, thanks, Tanya. Can everybody hear me all right? Great, thanks. I'll keep this brief. I just wanted to, especially following up on some of the comments from Tanya's presentation there and mention about tree protection efforts, I wanted to give a brief update on the work that I'm working on in partnership with the Urban Sustainability Directors Network and a graduate student at the University of Colorado at Boulder. And we have been paired up. She is helping me over the course of the summer to collect and analyze the existing tree protection ordinances from all of the local Sonoma County jurisdictions. So, so far we have compiled and sent a short survey to our best contacts at all the cities and the town of Windsor. We've heard back from all the cities except for one, and am following up to close the loop on that one right now. To get the last information. Our initial search is really just asking what ordinances on the books, do you have permits, do you have like what application forms would residents fill out, and then we are taking all that information, collecting it into a Google Drive archive, which will be easily to share online amongst all the jurisdictions here. And then we're taking snapshots of all the current jurisdictions, saving those as PDFs, and then dropping the text of all the ordinances into basically a Google Sheets workbook, of which then the graduate student, Emily Walsh, is working through line by line to kind of provide some analysis and look for commonalities or differences among the jurisdictions. At this point, she's not necessarily trying to pass any sort of judgment, but more just saying, hey, what's in or what's out of all these different plans. At this point, we're really focusing our efforts on the 9 cities and the town of Windsor, the cities and the towns, and we've kind of set the tree protection work from Permit Sonoma. We're actually setting that off to the side for a later analysis. It's a more complex subject. And to really keep the graduate student focused, keep Emily focused, I've just requested her. We're kind of focusing on the cities and towns first. And then if we have capacity and space, we'll dig into the work that's been compiled by Permit Sonoma, because that's currently under discussion for currently being discussed for being updated. A couple other quick updates. I think one of the key things that Emily is looking for is similarities or differences between the ordinances, and specifically trying to identify the anything having to do with mitigation or replanting programs across the cities. This was a topic that I believe was raised by Noah on a couple of different times, just looking at, is there an opportunity, and we don't know yet, is there an opportunity to for cities to work together and say, even if trees are removed in one jurisdiction, does it make sense to take the money and actually work and plant the trees in a nearby jurisdiction? And how would that work kind of mechanically and logistically? So we don't have any answers yet, but that is something that we're digging into. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was, and it came up at the tail end of the discussion there, a lot of this work has been started and instigated because of the carbon sequestration potential. As we're digging into it and realizing, based upon trees, based upon the types of tree species and locations where they're often planted in a more urban environment, that in addition to the carbon sequestration, we really want to, I think, promote and critically think about the other beneficial ecosystem services that additional tree planting would have. Things with urban heat island effect, shade cover, soil erosion, water retention, even things like beauty and aesthetics and increases in property values. I think those are all going to be important aspects that are above and beyond just carbon sequestration from a pure kind of carbon mechanical level. So that's the work that I'm working on right now with Emily. She is with us in kind of a volunteer part-time capacity through, I believe it's the middle of August. And so then at that point, sometime in August, we will have an archive of materials for reviewing and sharing among members of this group and other kind of jurisdictional staff that are involved with tree protection. So with that, I will, that's what I have to say, and I'll pass it back to Brian for any questions.
Thank you, BC. And then, so I was just going to ask about preview and just timing. So should we just make a note for the August meeting to just have maybe some preliminary?
Yes, I think that would scheduling wise, that would make sense.
Okay, sounds good.
And we have preliminary materials. If anybody is really working on this nuts and bolts right now, we have preliminary materials. I have no concerns about sharing them. But as far as kind of a grand unveiling of really saying, here's our archive in a completed fashion, it'll be later on in the summer.
Wonderful. Thanks, BC.
Sure.
Nancy, you have your hand up? Nancy Adams from City of Santa Rosa.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find my speaker icon. So I'm somewhat of a Debbie Downer on this tree protection, and for two reasons really. And I hope this review or analysis really casts a little wider net, because I get the carbon sequestration and what trees can do to help that. But I always wonder about, vegetation management and tree management for, our wildfires, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing I really would hope that people think about this idea is really, the more trees we plant, it affords, and it could impact our ability, at a residential level, solar access, right? If people put a lot of trees near their property and they would prevent them from putting solar panels on their house because of the limited access to the sun with additional shade. So I think this needs to be thought about as we continue this conversation about tree protection and tree mitigation. So just some thoughts.
Thank you, Nancy. All right. Well, BC, we're looking forward to. Looks like we have Carrie.
Sorry, I was thinking about what Nancy said, because that certainly is. I know in Sebastopol we have authorized a couple of tree removal permits because of someone wanting to do solar and solar access. But that's actually potentially an area where the coordination with other communities to plant trees could actually come in well, where it's, there's a lot of open space in the county where you could still, coordinate something like that and not lose the carbon possibilities.
Great point. All right. Any final thoughts? All right. We're looking forward to the update, BC. Thank you.
And I'll just say thank you to those of you who I've been in touch with and have responded to me back to myself or Emily directly. So thank you all.
Right, agenda item number 4, SB 743 implementation VMT discussion, I presume is going to be led by Chris.
Yeah, unless anyone else. Yeah, so the big news on the VMT reduction calculator project is we actually have a draft that the steering committee is actually reviewing right now. It's looking good. I can actually share my screen and provide a quick teaser preview if the group would like to see that. Yeah, so here's what the draft calculator looks like right now. So you can see that there are VMT reduction strategies. I gotta zoom. Can you still hear me?
You're coming
Yeah, we
in and
can
out,
hear you.
Chris, and your screen isn't being shared yet.
All right, just reconnected. Can everyone hear me now? Okay, okay, let me try and share again. If not, I'll just go ahead and kind of describe where it's at right now, since this is just a draft. There we go.
There we are. We can see your screen, Chris.
Okay, great. So yeah, the calculator is just a very complicated spreadsheet with 30 something tabs, but you can see that there are about 29 different VMT reduction strategies that the analyst or person looking at VMT reduction can choose from. These are split into reductions at the individual project level and then the community level. So, so there is a results screen that shows you VMT reductions based on the reduction policies that you choose. And then it also identifies conflicts and applies something called multiplicative dampening, which is basically if you choose different reduction measures, you can't stack the percentage reductions on top of one another. They will be somewhat reduced if you select certain reduction strategies. So here's a look at how you apply these different measures. It'll show the change in VMT at each measure level, and there are just a number of different variables that you plug in based on what you think is possible for each project. So that's where we're at right now. So as I said before, the steering committee is actually reviewing the draft tool right now. The comments that we've had so far are focused on mostly usability improvements, so including prompts and pop-ups to help walk the user through using the tool. Also, we're working on developing a worksheet that'll help get you ready to actually use the tool, and that'll help you determine whether or not you even need to do it. That'll walk you through project screening, prompt you for different variables that you need to actually use and apply the tool, and then provide some guidance on using the tool if you determine that you do need to use it and apply it. So right now, we're gathering comments right now. I'm meeting with Fair and Peers tomorrow to kind of see where we're at. But right now, schedule-wise, we're looking at incorporating and implementing changes based on feedback in July and rolling out the tool in July or August. And what we're looking at right now is scheduling a meeting right after the TAC meeting and inviting folks from the TAC and you all as well to make sure we have the public works engineering and planning side involved in a meeting to roll out the tool, provide some training, and answer questions. So that's where we're at right now. And yeah, we're looking forward to finalizing the tool, making it more usable, and getting it out there so it can be used and applied. So that's it for the VMT reduction calculator, unless there are any questions on that.
Brian,
Hey, Chris,
sorry, go ahead.
Chris, this is David there. Hi, thanks for the report, Chris. Have you got all of the feedback that you need from the cities as far as the data that you needed, that you asked for to put in the model?
Yeah, that's actually an item that's coming up. So we have, for the travel model, received submissions from Sonoma. So yeah, we're good on that. And we are receiving some feedback on the VMT calculator as well. So we'll be rolling that in and incorporating that into the final version of this tool. So I can move on to the next SB 743 item if that's okay. Brian, Chair.
Please.
Okay, so I also just wanted to give a quick reminder that there's an MTC SB 743 training session scheduled for next Tuesday, June 21st from 1 to 3. And Ada, if you have any thing you'd like to add, I just wanted to remind people that that's happening. This first session is covering an introduction to SB 743, what it is, the basics, and how it could be applied. And it'll be a chance to actually meet the consultant team that's going to be running through the SB 743 training curriculum. And right now it sounds like MTC is planning on hosting 5 to 7 different sessions, depending on the need. And subsequent sessions will be more and more detailed. So yeah, and Ada just popped up the link there, but yeah, should be a good chance to kind of go through the basics and then dive into some of the details in future sessions. So just wanted to remind people that that's happening next week.
Thanks, Chris. And just to clarify, is it a closed invite list to this group here, or would there be other groups that would benefit? I'm thinking maybe our counterparts in public works, transportation, people like that.
Yeah, they've definitely been invited. So I sent the long list of SB 743 contacts over to MTC. So everyone on that list, which includes most people in the PAC and TAC, should have included an invitation to that. But Ada, I think it's open as well. So if there are additional staff, please pass that information along.
Yeah, I think it's open, and also it just might be good to coordinate within the jurisdiction, so it's not a who's on first kind of situation. Just to make sure someone is attending if it's needed. Would it be useful for me to check with Kruti to see who signed up? I don't think she asked for a sign up though, but if she knows who's responded, I can get back to you guys if she has any ideas.
I know I definitely received the invite from Kruti, because this is the one where she's doing like a county specific approach, right? So there's different.
Yeah, it's by county.
Okay. Yeah.
And I believe Kruti sent out invitations to other sessions in different counties if you can't make this one as well. So I believe those are open if you have a scheduling conflict.
Okay. Well, why don't we stay with Chris? Well, thank you for that update. But let's also stick with Chris on item number 5, travel model update.
Yeah, and this is just a brief reminder that I'm working on updating the pending development and permitted projects database right now. So all of the data requests have made it out. A lot of the reviews already come back in. So David, we did receive the submissions from Sonoma, so thank you for that, and a few other jurisdictions. So the due date for most of those is June 17th. So if you can, please provide any feedback or updates by June 17th. And one tip I would give is just, pay particular attention to any larger projects or higher profile projects that you think are very important to be included in the travel model. So, that's one of the main reasons we set up the database, to make sure those types of projects are included in the travel model and are, included in any analysis that's happening for projects in your jurisdiction. So, just keep an eye on that and make sure those projects are making it into the database so they trickle into the travel model as well. So if anyone's having any trouble with the updates or reviewing the tables, please let me know. I'm happy to, jump on a quick phone call or a video conference to kind of walk through the tables and what I'm looking for as well.
So Chris, that was very kindly said. I'll be a little bit more direct. Without naming names, can you tell us what percentage of data you've got so that we can help you meet the deadline by tomorrow? Because the 17th is tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, that is tomorrow. So about 30% have made it in so far. So yeah, so we have a ways to go. The county, we pushed the deadline out a little further. There was some additional processing that needed to happen for their reports. So looking at getting feedback back from the county in July. So yeah, we're making good progress. Appreciate the submissions that have come back in, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help with the review and getting that back into. So yeah, the travel model is we want good data to go into the travel model so the results are better, right? It's a garbage in, garbage out situation there. So we really want to make sure we're including, this is the best information we have on projects that will likely be built. So we really want to make sure that those are included in our forecasts and the analysis that's done using the travel model. So
at what point, Chris, would you say the garbage is sufficient as far as the percentage of data that you need to make the model worth or useful to you? I mean, is it 50% and you can sleep at night, or is it you really need 75%? So you might need 3 or 4 more jurisdictions to pitch in. Help me understand that.
I really want to hear back from everyone. So yeah, if you're having trouble, let me know. And once we pass the deadline or the submission recommendation of tomorrow, I'll go ahead and just start reaching out to people and making sure that everything looks okay in the database. So we've been doing this for a number of years now, so I think we have a pretty good foundation. So at this point, it's mostly just taking out projects that have been withdrawn or been constructed, and then adding in new projects that have kind of come online in the last year. So I think in most cases, the task is streamlined to some extent at this point. So, hopefully the review is quicker and easier year over year.
Carrie?
Thank you. So I'm just curious how far in the future you want us to project in terms of when projects are, sort of a pipe dream potentially that we've talked to folks about versus more, yeah, these people are serious, it might actually happen.
Yeah, I would take, if you think there's a good chance of this happening, I think it should be included in the database. And one of the benefits to that is these are actual projects, right? It's different than a forecast. So this is a good way of actually having some real numbers feeding into the future conditions of the model. So otherwise we're reliant on MTC and ABAG and their forecasting. So this adds a lot more reality to future conditions. So yeah, so if you think there's a decent chance of it happening, I would ask that you include it.
All right, well, that makes sense. So just to double down on that, feedback would be appreciated by all by June 17th, end of day. Thanks, Chris. All right, should we stay with you on item number 6, SCTA policy clarification for Vision Zero?
Janet?
That's me.
So Janet,
Yeah.
okay.
I know that at the last meeting, I received a request to clarify what needs to be done by all the jurisdictions on Vision Zero. So I know that many of you are completing your local road safety plans. That is a very important step towards getting funding. Adopting a Vision Zero action plan is going to be a requirement of funding as well. And we hope to make that easier for all of you by doing a countywide plan. And I think the plan is a very good one. And I encourage you all to adopt it at your councils. It has been adopted on consent by many of you, or maybe some of you. And we have a lot of tools on our website, including a staff report, presentation, and a resolution. I know that Ken Eichstad of Petaluma has also provided a specific staff report for his council, and we will support you in any way we can on that. I'm not sure it would be beneficial for me to come and present to your council, but we will consider whatever you think you need. Along that topic, just for information, we've been looking at the grant opportunity that you may have received from USDOT or from, it was also forwarded by Laurel Chambers of DHS to either create or implement an action plan. And since we already have an action plan, a countywide action plan that includes everybody, we are considering applying to implement one of the goals, one or more of the goals that involve, we have a goal of create a culture of safety. We also want to promote to you and others our database that we have, the impressive database that Chris and others put together that is already on our website that measures traffic fatalities by jurisdiction, by type. And so if anybody has any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them here or offline. Okay. You know where to reach me, and happy to walk through it with anybody who thinks they may need additional help from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. And Janet, can you clarify the funding tie that you alluded to?
The funding right now is HSIP. There may be funding requirements in the future. That's what we're concerned about, the future, the unknown future requirements.
Okay.
Oh, and also just one more sentence on unknown future requirements and known. I'm going to be sending out a spreadsheet to all of you to fill in on your housing policies. More and more funding programs are requiring the 3 Ps that I may have talked about last time. And we're trying to get that together. I've had some help from Ada. I appreciate it. Thank you. To just so that we can track your housing policy, so you don't have to do this every time there's a funding opportunity. We will just know where you are on that. I will send that out. If you have any questions, please contact me on that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. All right, let's move on to item number 7, standing updates for discussion Let's start. Let me see. David, do you want to just, I'm sorry, I missed the prep meeting on Monday. Kind of walk through why they're outlined differently, A through D. Member updates, housing element, SB9 follow-up, and SCTA board.
Yeah, I just wanted to focus on those two particular things, perhaps take a little bit more time than I would during member updates. I don't have any updates. I just like to focus on those two things for today, Brian. Thank you.
Okay. And those two things being the housing element and SB9?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. Looks like Rafael will be City of Cloverdale dropping off. Thanks again. All right, well, I'd like to kick us off on member updates. And if you don't have any, we can just pass.
Yeah, nothing's happening.
I guess I'll start off for Sebastopol, and John can join in with anything that I miss. Starting from the most recent, moving back, our Planning Commission just approved or recommended council approve a 4-unit Habitat for Humanity townhome project right in downtown. And so that'll be going to council probably the first meeting in August, since we have budget for the next couple of meetings. The council just also adopted our local hazard mitigation plan next week, or a couple weeks ago, and so that is off to FEMA for final approval. We are going to council to approve Opticos to help us with objective design standards next week. John, I know I'm missing some stuff, but we have a couple of art openings in town coming up. If you're interested, we have a library art sculpture, the opening, which is already installed. The opening for that is July 20th. And we have a sculpture garden in Ives Park opening July 23rd. In terms of other housing projects, for the Woodmark projects, that's the 84-unit low income on Bodega Avenue. We did receive a resubmittal for them, trying to get to the consistency. So we are probably a week out from finishing our review of that. Chris, this is one of the reasons I asked you about timing and projects. We had a project that went dark, City Ventures potential project for 80 to 90 units, all electric, as they do on the north side of town behind the O'Reilly office building. It went dark during COVID, but they have come back and they're starting to do some meetings and due diligence on that, likely to submit later this year. And our Huntley Square 10-unit mini townhome subdivision got their final approval from design review, so that is moving forward. In terms of transportation improvements, we are finalizing some of the design stuff for Bodega Avenue to add bicycle lanes and close a couple of sidewalk gaps. That will probably be in construction next spring. I believe that's an OBAG grant. So our engineering department is working on that. And then our climate action framework draft that our Civic Spark fellow Phoebe Golden has been working on is going to be presented to our climate action committee next Wednesday. And so that public draft is available very soon. John, did I miss anything? I'm sure I did.
You got all of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, John.
I'm happy to go next if you want, Brian.
All right.
There's Noah and Katati. Lots of current development going on, and senior planner JP Harries is handling most of those applications. So JP, you can jump in if you hear anything or that I misstate or forget. But so we were just tallying up. We have about 500 units in process right now in Katati, and most of them have come in over the last 60 days. So yeah, it's just been kind of a whirlwind. Our council last Tuesday, or just Tuesday this week, just approved the final action for Cotati Station. So that's 98 units right next to the train station, and has a little bit of commercial, but it's mainly a residential project. It's been around a long time. It actually has a lot of community benefits. So I was really happy to see that get approved. Has about 20% inclusionary at a variety of income levels, city park, fixes some traffic problems over there in the Santero specific plan. So it's really exciting. However, in Cotati, we've done some really interesting things in limiting density based on CEQA. And so in the Santero plan, which was written 20 years ago, envisioned a lot of office square footage being built in conjunction with about 200 residential units. Well, now all of those residential units have been built and very little of the office. So I do anticipate doing a specific plan update. We got a grant for that through the REAP program. And so I do plan on getting an RFP out for that towards the end of the year as we push to wrap up our housing element, which Jane and company for Four Leaf are hanging out with us till about 10 o'clock on Tuesday with our council to get our last kind of public engagement efforts wrapped up for the housing element. So now it's just going to be a run to August to get the 30-day public review draft published. Our hotel resubmitted to update their design. So I'm lead staff on that, and I'll be trying to get that to the planning commission in the next month or two. JP has finalized the greenhouse gas, fossil fuel station ban. So that's going at the end of this month to the council. It's an ordinance, and so that'll be the first reading. And we have out of these 500 units, we do have SB 35 and SB 330 projects. So we're kind of, blazing the trail here in Cotati for the first time with those. Some interesting legal analysis and just the dynamics of how the different applicants are choosing to engage with us has been kind of a learning curve and interesting for us. Cannabis, we're about to have our second dispensary open up probably next month or in August. If you guys drive by on 116, it's that little mini shopping center where Red's recovery room was. It's now going to be Red's dispensary. So I don't know if they're going to stick with that name, but I kind of hope they do. So anyway, that'll be the center space. There's 3 commercial buildings. The center one's a dispensary. They do not have tenants for the other 2. If you guys have anybody inquiring about kind of interesting, nice premium pay retail spaces, we have some in Cotati. And the last thing I was going to mention is SB2 grants wrap up this month. So if you guys, just a reminder, all that funding needs to be expended by the end of this month. And I don't know if Ada has any input on that, but we've been trying to do some accounting internally. And so.
No, that was extended by the state.
Oh, I did not know
We got
that.
if you recall, I can probably pull out the letter, but Ada.
Thank you, Amy. I had no idea.
Yeah, let me just see if I can. I know I had let.
Terry, it looks like Amy said September 2023.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yep. Perfect.
Nice.
Okay, well, that's good to know. That's awesome. I had no idea. We had some previous staff that was kind of helping with the administrative element of it, and she left, and so maybe I didn't get the email. But anyway, okay, well then never mind on that point. And then bike and ped, just lastly, I'll touch on and just see if JP wants to add anything. But our bike and ped, we've just been struggled to get it off the ground. We're going to try to do it internally, but with the volume of work we have, we just can't. And so I put in a budget request, which is going to the council also this month. And hopefully we'll have some budget in there for some funding, and we'll do an RFP, and we're hoping to tag team with the SCTA process. And that's it for Cotati. Unless JP, you want to add anything?
All right. Thanks, Cotati.
I can go for Roner Park. The first off, our general plan, we have the policy document finished. We're not quite through we're preparing our environmental documents that's in the works, and we're taking the policy document to the council. The second meeting in June is kind of the official public draft of our general plan. So that's moving along, and also our housing element is also moving along. We have a home key site that is under construction at the moment. And so that's our transitional homeless housing that's over by our fire station on the west side, over kind of by where the Costco is. And so that's going to be built in a few months, a very quick build on that one. And what else we have going on? We have housing continuing to be built in University District, and then Sonoma is working towards having their first building permits approved for housing in that project. And then they're also continuing to kind of attract new commercial tenants. So they're hoping to get a brew pub and a restaurant here. So Sonoma might actually turn into a village one of these days. So and what else we have going on? We got a hotel under construction, home to suites. And we bought this little infill site near our smart train station to build a downtown. So that's occupying a lot of our time at the moment. That's all I got.
Way to bury the lead there, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Patrick, it looks like you're leaning in, but maybe I don't think I heard you on the audio.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Oh, it's working now? Yeah. Working?
Better.
Okay.
Thanks.
Just a quick update on Windsor. The big item that everyone's looking at is the Vintage Oaks on the town green. That is just north of Windsor's town green. It's ultimately going to be, I think, 387 units. Phase 1 is 120, so they're going in right next door to Oliver's in the downtown. And then along Old Redwood Highway, there's a lot of construction going on. We've got a couple dozen 100% affordable a couple dozen units. The projects are 100% affordable. So it's nice to see those actually under construction. We are reviewing our admin draft on the housing element right now. So that's probably going to go out as a public draft later this summer. And we've got some policies going in front of the council. So on July 20th, we've got our VMT policy. I think August 3rd, so the next council after that, we have a gas station ban. And then we were waiting to get our draft housing element before we put forward our short-term rental ordinance. So that's another thing that in the next couple of months, we're going to have that going in front of our council too. So a lot of policies and a lot of development going on in Windsor right now.
Thanks, Patrick.
I can go next if you'd like. My list is kind of the same as Patrick's, ironically, but so I'll start that we are moving through with our general plan update. We're moving along. So we've just closed on our alternatives phase and are now preparing a preferred alternative to go back out to the community to confirm that's what we heard. And our housing element is out for release, as Jane noted in the chat. And we did just go to our planning commission and housing authority as we go to our city council on Tuesday. The main discussion points with our draft is one, should we identify sites within the WUI? And two, the county's request to have us absorb 1,800 units of RENA. So those are the two major points that we've been walking through with our decision makers. So Tuesday should be interesting. And then beyond that, we are also working on a fossil fuel station ban, move from gas station to fossil fuel. So I think a few of you have taken the lead on that. So it's great to have some draft ordinances out there. So ours is going to go to Planning Commission in July and our council in August. And we are also working on short-term rental policy, really trying to get our arms around that issue. So we are going back to our city council in August and are looking at doing a cap to really rein that issue in. And so let's see, on the other side of the house with development, it's been really busy. We have a lot of projects entitled downtown, and the Red Renewal Enterprise District has been providing funding, so they're just signing all the documents to be able to provide that gap financing to a lot of those projects. So we're excited to see more of our entitled projects move forward. If you've been downtown, you probably see there are a couple big projects that are under construction. And let's see, I think that's oh, and then on staffing, we're happy to announce that Jessica Jones is going to be our new deputy director. So she's been in that role for about a week now. Very excited about that. And so we will be announcing soon our current planning supervisor. And then we also have a whole bunch of planners starting. So we have 4 planners starting over this next 3 weeks, and then a couple starting in July. So it's been great to really move forward on onboarding our new planners. And yeah, so a lot of exciting things happening at Santa Rosa.
And I won't throw too much shade that you poached one of my favorite planners.
Sorry about that, Patrick.
Thank you, Amy. All right. Well, why don't I'll just jump in. I think I won't repeat any of the same updates. Probably I think the biggest one that we have this afternoon, our spring specific plan is getting its draft EIR hearing with Planning Commission, and so a few of us will be there this afternoon, and so we're at the midpoint of the public comment period. So we're looking to get that to the board before the end of the year. And I think I would say Sonoma Developmental Center specific plan is probably tracking about a month behind that schedule as well. And then we have our third specific plan focused on the airport area right behind that as well. But everything else that has already been mentioned, short-term rentals, housing element, we're all marching along. And then we're in the budget discussions right now with our big request to get our general plan update funded and off the ground. All right, so we have 15 minutes here. Unless there's any other pressing updates, why don't I turn it over to David for SB9 follow-up?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Before I do that, I'll just give you all an update on a couple of things in Sonoma. Last night, our city council adopted several things, but 2 of interest to your group perhaps, is we do our second reading on objective design standards for multifamily. And then we also adopted our timeshare ordinance, our regular ordinance, as opposed to our urgency ordinance, which will be replaced. So if anybody has any interest in that, I'll be happy to share that or send me an email. We also received an application, an SB 330 application for 50 units along Highway 12 up in the northwest quadrant of our city, as it turns out, right across the street from our cannabis retail dispensary. But the interest in this one is it requires a demolition of a historic resource. So I'll be shooting out an EIR and letting those chips land where they land. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. That was submitted by De Novo Homes. So we'll have some fun over the next year. With respect to putting these 2 items on the agenda, and I'll be quick. I just wanted to kind of get a sense. I was taking notes. No, I heard you mention the housing element in Windsor this summer, and I think Santa Rosa is out for public review. I just want to kind of get a sense for, is it July? Is it August? I'm just kind of curious because, I'm looking at mid-July to send it out for public review in order to play this game with, or ping pong game with HCD on their review, getting comments back. So I was hoping to drill in on that specifically from each of the jurisdictions. So I'll open it up for discussion real quick, Brian, if that's okay.
Please.
Yeah, I see a note just chimed in that they're targeting August. In Windsor, we were hoping to get it out this month actually, but we've had various illnesses and now there's vacations and things, so we're probably looking at a similar timeline as Katati.
So no, that would be the month of August for your 30 days beginning at the beginning of August. Is that it?
It'll probably be mid when it drops and then push into September for the 30-day.
Yeah, what I'm sensing is that the consultants that are out there are somewhat confident that there won't be a whole lot of pushback from HCD because of the elements that have already been approved, although we all know that HCD has been turning up the screw on the site's inventory. So
I've been hearing the exact opposite, David. I'm shocked that your consultants are feeling that way, but good for you.
I'm not saying my consultants, I'm saying I hear consultants saying that. And I know the San Diego and the like, there's elements out there that have been certified, but now the level of scrutiny is increased.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is the goalposts keep moving, the pushback keeps happening, and now I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's actually a new element to the AFFH that talks about not just pockets of maybe challenged communities, but also affluent communities. So you have to look at pockets of affluence as a part of your AFFH. So just basically, I wouldn't count on that.
Good point. Thanks. Carrie?
I was going to say for Sebastopol, we're looking at our public review starting July 18th. So to end mid-August, and submitting to HCD is scheduled end of August. So
yeah, I've always been thinking in my head that we'll at least get one return back from HCD. I mean, I think that's what I'm hearing with these early kickoff dates on the public review, and that's what I was interested in hearing. Anybody else want to chime in?
I think we're planning for 2 rounds with HCD, and hopefully we don't need it, but maybe the collaborative meeting we can have the opportunity to talk about that too.
Okay, thanks. Then the last item, Brian, if that's okay to move on, sounds like so a lot of folks in my neck of the woods and also in some of the regional webinars that I've been involved with have been using the name of the city of Sonoma when it comes to a jurisdiction that is flaunting the SB 9 stuff, if you will. And I'm not sure if you're all aware, but Turner Center came out with a very recent study. I want to say June the 9th, I could be wrong, David Garcia and a couple of others. And within that particular study, they identified 10 jurisdictions throughout the state, of which Sonoma is the second smallest to Los Altos Hills, and all of the others are north of 30,000 population. What I find interesting is that the claim against our city, while we're not quite Temple City or Pasadena, we've done something outrageous like require private open space as far as our SB 9 units. And just so happens that our open space policies have been there for multifamily for over 20 years. And so people are taking exception that we might have created a barrier, if you will, or an impediment to providing for these SB 9 units, which could not be further from the truth. We also have been attacked, so to speak, on our requirement to require mature trees and shrubs for these SB 9 units. And at the end of the day, our requirement is to provide 3 15-gallon trees and 15 shrubs per unit, which I think is comical in the fact that that's been our standard development requirement for multifamily, like I said, for almost two decades. And so I'm kind of interested because in that Turner report, again, this most recent one, the point being is that they use the notion that HCD is about to send letters to 30 jurisdictions. And I'm sure if they do their homework, that list may have to be modified to those that are more Pasadena, Temple City-like. But then there's also the threat of the Attorney General. I'm curious to see if other jurisdictions in our group here have been hearing any of the same kind of stuff about your jurisdiction, assuming that is that you've addressed SB 9 units. So that's my intro. Just kind of curious if there's a bit of discussion on that for a few minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, David, we haven't started our SB 9 yet. Actually the folks, Opticos helping us with the objective design standards, we actually added SB 9 regs to that scope, so.
Yeah, we currently in our city, we adopted an urgency ordinance, but have not yet followed it up with a regular ordinance. My thought is we'll wait to see if indeed the Attorney General has us on his wish list. Like Pasadena, if you've been following that. I would say a majority of the jurisdictions throughout the state are not touching SB 9. They're just letting the state laws run their course, so to speak. I'm certainly not looking at SB 9 as a solution to my housing issues as far as the units in the next cycle. I would suspect that it might even be less than the number of ADUs that we allow, but certainly not to be discounted in their totality. There will be some impact of SB 9 units coming along the line. Ada, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just to say, because we had some SB 9 objective design standards drafted just for the region by Opticos. And when we were doing some pushback and forth kind of internally, and because SB 9 isn't actually about sustainable neighborhoods, like what makes a neighborhood work, right? Bad design could be very hard on a community. But we're actually having Turner Center review those, what we developed, just to see if they would also be perceived as kind of anti-SB 9 or anti-housing. Just to see, right? Just to play it through to see how these positions are taken and things like that. So just anyhow, wanted to share that challenge is something we're trying to think through also.
One of the things, Ada, on that point, and I'm willing for people to provide information to us, our city, and those cities that have exercised discretion as the law allows. I'm willing, more than willing, for people to tell me where I'm in violation of SB 9. And to date, nobody's been able to do that. They're just left throwing this stuff against the wall. And sooner, more people are beginning to believe that these things are true. But if they do it a layer, pull back the layers of the onion, it cannot be further from the truth. But yes, you have the extreme of Temple City, and they did get a letter from HCD, and they are required to respond, as opposed to a letter that went from the AG to Pasadena. So please, if there's people out there that want to tell me where, yes, I know about intent all day long. I've lived in tents. But the point being is, that was a joke, by the way. The point being is we need to figure out from a policy standpoint if we've really violated SB 9. And I would encourage people to think about that as you're crafting your ordinances, if you do so. Thank you.
Did you know who at HCD was reviewing the SB 9 compliance stuff?
No, I don't. I spoke with Paul, and as you know, he's pretty much in a silo doing the housing elements. That concludes my request, Brian. It sounds like we've got a little bit of feedback here.
All right, thanks everyone.
I could give a little update on MTC kind of products. I mean, I'll send you guys out the bulletin too, but if it's useful to not have to read it and to know what to look for.
Sure, and just a time check. We have a couple minutes here, but yeah, please. Go ahead.
So just a really quick run for the housing TA program. I don't know if people are familiar, but the HES tool has a 2.0 version. So for your site selection, it should be a little bit. It's been updated and has more layers, so check that out. There's also more funding and availability of tools and TA and funding for engagement. So if you guys are needing any of that, go check out this website, and I'll send you guys the bulletin update with all the links after this meeting. The TOC plan was adopted in May. So just to let folks know that occurred, and you might want to check that out. I put in the active transportation. A policy was adopted in March, but tools and kind of checklists and things like that were developed and are now on our website. I put the link in the chat, but also a link will also be in the bulletin. We're doing a priority conservation area. We received a SALC grant, so there'll be some gatherings and discussion around that. There'll be a refresh on that, so keep an eye out for opportunities to participate. In particular, Sonoma, it would be of more interest in maybe other areas. And then there's the SB 743 VMT meetings that Chris talked about. And I think that's it. So just a really quick one. So I know the list is long when you get the bulletin. So in case any of those are interest, you know what to go look for.
Thank you, Ada. All right. Let's see. Do we have any members of the public wishing to provide comment? Seeing none. Okay. Oh, I skipped over one item. Sorry, Janet. SCTA board item. I see there's a staff report attached, but anything else you'd like to provide an update on?
The board met earlier this week. The agenda is online for your review. Attached here in our PAC agenda is the planning updates. This is what Chris and Dana and I do a lot of the time. That's all I have to say. Just bringing your attention to what we do. Thanks.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, well, that concludes our agenda for today. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, well, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and we'll see you in about 30 seconds. Bye, everyone.
Right.